It is 3:04. We'll call the July 8th, 2020 school board special call meeting of the DeSoto County Board of Education to order. At this time, I'll ask Sarah Doss Thomas to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item is the approval of the agenda. Is there anything that needs to be added? Seeing none, I need a motion to approve, recommendation to approve the agenda, please.
Madam President, I recommend the board to approve the agenda.
Any motion? I need a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Now we're on to new business. The first item is personnel, Ms. Robinson.
The personnel package handouts this afternoon, you have a page of recommendations, a page of personnel changes. The third page, I'm requesting to approve just a correction. We had added days and the mathematical error, so we need to have 176 hours per employee for JDC. I had it board approved as 160, so I was a couple days short on that, so we just need to change that. So that was the work, and then I have to allow someone to return to work early and give them comp times to 10 employee, and she reported to work on a couple of days there and here before it was called.
Your recommendation is recommended.
Madam President, I recommend the board to approve personnel as presented.
Do I have a motion to that effect?
I make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item is passed. The next item is the 2020-2021 bell times.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to go over the bell times with the board at this time. Our bell times will be slightly different than what they have been in the past. And we've got a separate handout there with all the bell times for each of the schools. And the reason for the changes in the bell times this year, there'll be some alterations by 10 minutes on the schedule. The reason being is because buses will be cleaned between the early routes and the late routes. And so the buses going from the early zone to the late zone, those buses will be cleaned. So we need that 10 additional minutes that will be built in. And so what will happen is your early schools will still start at the same time. Your late schools will start 10 minutes later than they normally do. And then in the afternoon, the early schools will dismiss 10 minutes early, and then the late schools will dismiss at the regular time. So the early and lates are all going to be different by 10 minutes. What will happen, once again, the early schools will let out 10 minutes earlier than normal. The late schools will start 10 minutes later than normal, and that will accommodate the cleaning of the buses.
Based on Mr. Usselton's presentation, do I have a motion to accept? Yes.
My recommendation to the board is to approve the 2020-21 bill.
Okay, based on Mr. Usselton's recommendation, do I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next is our return to learn plan, Mr. Usselton.
Thank you, Madam President. You've got a copy of the Return to Learn plan in front of you. We're going to go through this, and I've got some of our directors will also be speaking today as we go through this. You'll see there on page 1 of your packet, the Return to Learn plan, and we used considerations from 3 different groups when we were formulating the plan from the Centers for Disease Control, the CDC, Mississippi State Department of Health, and Mississippi Department of Education. All three of those agencies put out considerations for the upcoming school year. We also, we had our district leadership team and our Return to Learn task force received input from parents, teachers, administrators, staff members, and from our DeSoto County Schools Medical Task Force. As I mentioned a few weeks ago, we have a group of local physicians who are on that group, and they give us input and advice as we move along. On June 8th, the Mississippi Department of Education issued their considerations for reopening schools, and they gave three models, three options in that: the traditional model, the hybrid model, and the distance learning model. Our intention is to return to school with a traditional model, but as it's stated there at the bottom, that there could be frequent changes throughout the year. If there's anything that we've learned over the last few months, we must be flexible every day, and so there is a possibility that all three of those could be used throughout the school year if needed, depending on health conditions in our schools and throughout the community. And on page 2, we got disclaimers. The first thing there, the part that makes a plan like this so challenging, is that no plan is going to be ideal for everyone, because every family is unique. Every family has their own situations, and so we wanted to try to put a plan together that meets the needs of our families. And we'll see in here, we talk about social distancing. Social distancing is going to be a challenge. Social distancing and school efficiency do not go hand in hand, because schools are built on efficiency. There's a certain amount of square footage in classrooms, there's a certain number of buses that school districts buy, and so social distancing will be a challenge, and we know that throughout the school year. As we look on the third page at procedures, we'll be in constant communication, and we have been with the Mississippi State Department of Health, the Mississippi Department of Education, and the local healthcare community. If there is a significant spread, the secondary schools, as we mentioned earlier, could be moved to a hybrid model if needed. The secondary schools are the most likely to be on the hybrid model. The reason why: the elementary schools, they're going to be very static. You've got normally the same students in the classroom every day, and so they're only around a certain group of students. For the middle and high school students, they're around different students throughout the day as they go from one class and one subject to the next. And so the elementary schools will not present as much of a challenge with social distancing as the secondary schools will. That's the reason why I say the secondary schools will be more likely to be on a hybrid schedule than the elementary schools would be. But as we have in the plan, we want everyone to be prepared, because any group of students could be moved to some type of temporary distance learning, whether it's a week, 2 weeks, whatever it might be. And that could be an individual class, it could be an individual school, it could be multiple schools, or it could be the entire school district, depending on what type of guidance we receive. We'll go to the next page where the academic guidelines are listed. The absence requirement has been eliminated from the exemption policy that was board approved. The reason that we have that in our return to learning plan is because we will be encouraging parents, if they have a child who is sick, we want the child to stay at home. We do not want our exemption policy to contradict what we're telling parents as far as a sick child. And so we've eliminated the absence requirement from the exemption policy. There's just the grade requirement in there now, and no absences will be in that for the 2020-2021 school year. Also, graduation requirements were revised for this school year. They will be the same as they were last spring for the class of 2020, and they will meet the Mississippi Department of Education requirements. The reason that we're doing that and being proactive is because we have the opportunity to do that now. The Mississippi Department of Education has given school districts the option of revisiting their graduation requirements, but once the school year starts, we're not able to do that. So those have been adjusted just in case we have some type of closure, especially in the 4 to 9 weeks, where we could help our seniors in the class of 2021 if needed. And also, as a proactive measure, we took the same steps with the grading scale that we did in the spring, where in past years a 65 was the lowest grade that someone could have and pass a course. It will be a 60 for the upcoming year. This is the same policy that we had in the spring semester as we were moving into distance learning to help students out. So all three of those items are student-centered. Those decisions are, but they help our students in case we have some type of closure. The Mississippi Department of Education, as we have there, they've given flexibility to adjust the amount of time the students spend in class each day. We'll be putting information to you over the next few weeks in board meetings about the amount of time and that information. If the last bullet point on there, if distance learning for a hybrid model must be implemented, students will be held accountable for assignments given during that time. So during the last 9 weeks of last school year, we were all trying to help students all that we could. We've never been through a situation like that before, but now our teachers will be prepared for it, and students will be held accountable if there is a hiatus in the school year where distance learning is having to be used for a period of time. I'm going to ask our Chief Operations Officer, Mr. Rob Chase, to come forward, and he will go over the next 5 sets of guidelines.
Good afternoon. All right, we'll start with child nutrition. Obviously, this is some things you can see here that we will do. Breakfast will be grab and go. We'll just use those so that it's expedient and less interaction. Schools may alter their lunch schedule. Obviously, you just set the bells, but obviously principals will have to manipulate the lunch schedule to create more time for the social distance or cut how many can feed at one time. And you could have cases where students may, some of the students may eat in the classroom. So you'll see we're going to promote social distance at the certain lines, cafeteria tables. Cafeteria and kitchens will be cleaned frequently throughout the day. Students will be able to wash their hands before and after lunch. If needed, entrance and exit pathways, that's in there just in case to make sure principals inform us not have them all converging on each other at the same location. And you see some other things that will apply to cafeteria staff. And then also, as far as lunches, obviously visitors will be a difficult situation at our schools. And we'll kind of follow COVID-19 conditions there. The principals are going to have the prerogative at that location to determine whether visitors will be allowed. And that pretty well is that. The other thing I want you to be aware of, though, in our grades K through 2, they don't punch. Y'all know as you go through the cafeteria line, students punch in their ID number into the system. We are going to go to a card swap system so that students are not touching the same device. They'll just kind of go through. K2 right now, the teachers handle it for them anyway. They don't do that, but as started upper intermediate, middle, and high, they'll have the card system where they'll swipe as they go through there. On the transportation, obviously this is one big key area that we just social distancing will be very, very difficult. And because of that, we're going to encourage parents, first of all, if you can take your child to school, that is this, obviously from a COVID-19 stance, that would be the safest way to transport your child, but that would be recommended that. It's also shown where the parents provide masks for the children for buses. If you do need the bus, that would be something we provide. Each bus will be sanitized between routes. Each driver will be given a set of things that they need to do that. And also by you approving the bell schedule, you have allotted them the time to do that. Seating chart will be maintained. You know, we've always maintained who they've got to know by law in case we ever had a bus wreck or whatever, you know who's on the bus. But at this point, it's not even elective who sits where. They will all have to have a seating chart. And then siblings, we're going to ask any siblings who ride the same bus that they sit together. And that is transportation. Facilities, all facilities will be deep cleaned before they return to students and staff, and all those will receive a deep cleaning on a regular basis. The first deep cleaning is going on now. Our summer project, as you all know, we clean and wax all the floors. That is all to be done by next Friday. They're supposed to be completed all the way through the district, and we'll start going through that part of it as well. Every campus, we have hired a new maintenance, another maintenance person on each campus to do nothing more than to wipe down doors, heavily touched areas. That will not stop. That will go on continuously and just walk the pattern and make sure that's done. Signage will be located, reminding students about social distancing, and then we'll also have age-appropriate signs in each one of the bathrooms, reminding students of those common tips as far as hygiene. And that's kind of where we sit with facility. Operational, there will be minimal movement inside the classrooms once students arrive. They're pretty well going to be locked down to that area. Morning arrival procedures and class changes may be altered on each campus. As y'all are familiar with, there's 42 campuses, and they're all 42 different, sometimes setups, different situations at different schools. So those things can alter. School assemblies, if they're going to have any type of school assemblies, obviously the numbers will have to be down, and you will only be able to do those outside. There will be nothing inside. Students will hear frequent intercom announcements about fever, sickness, and good hygiene, constant reminders. The use of any kind of shared objects will be limited, and those that do use, obviously will have to clean in between usage of. And then use of shared materials in class will be limited, and typically, and then it's redundant, but you know, in the elementary grades, a lot of times everybody goes to the same crayon box, all that will be gone. Everybody has to have that. Extra classroom furniture can be eliminated to accommodate for more extra space. In elementary grades, teachers may rotate and students may stay in the same classroom all day when feasible. Group work will be limited in order to promote social distance. Students should all face in the same direction in class when feasible. This is dependent upon obviously classroom furniture, enrollment, and those type of things. And teachers will keep the same seating arrangements. So if you decide to go see schools at elementary, they're going to start looking like they probably did 30, 40 years ago that we all remember. But that's going to be the best way to go. And the last part of mine is under health and hygiene. Every elementary school, middle school, and high school will have a full-time on-site nurse that you've already approved. Our district head nurse, Ms. Pat Davis, has already got them all hired. And we will begin training with them next Friday, and that moves on. So we'll have all that set. Because social distancing will often be a challenge, it is strongly recommended that parents provide masks for their children if age appropriate. While masks are not required, masks could reduce the risk of COVID-19 transmission, and masks significantly reduce the possibility of students being quarantined by the Mississippi Department of Health for 14 days because of the close contact at school with a confirmed case, a COVID case. I'm not going to go into the quarantine. I think Ms. Russell's going to handle that for you here in just a minute, but I will say this. Our stance right now on the masks are very, they're in the step line right now with all state and local government. But as we all know, state and local government can change. This is what today is, July 8th. Come July 30th, it could be sometime. Students will be taught and reminded about proper hand washing and cough covering. Field trips at this time will not be allowed until further notice. This situation will be monitored throughout the school year, just like so far. We've opened up our travel situation inside the state, that y'all's thing that we voted on. We still don't travel outside the state of Mississippi. All that is still intact. Guest speakers will not be allowed until further notice. This situation will also be monitored throughout the school year. Only essential visitors will be allowed on campus, and then those essential vendors will be asked to complete a self-screening. Obviously, y'all all been around schools. Our essential vendors, air conditioner breaks, so we got to go in and fix our HVAC system. All those type things will be what essential vendors are. Shared materials such as computers will be cleaned after each use, and those are pretty much applied to our classes. Starting 8th grade, we start teaching those credit union courses where we have that, so we don't have to do with the state level. Students also are encouraged to bring their own water bottles from home. Home is the first screening point of the continuum. It is requested that parents check for symptoms and check their child's temperature each morning before leaving for school. Families are encouraged to self-report symptoms of illness to the school nurse. Students will be asked at the beginning of each day to confirm that they are not experiencing the following symptoms: high temperature, cough, chills, shortness of breath, muscle pains, headache, sore throat, loss of taste or smell. And school nurses may conduct temperature checks and well-being checks as deemed necessary throughout the school day. An isolation area will be designated for students exhibiting symptoms while we wait on their parents, and mental health support will also be available on students at campus. And these isolation areas will definitely be restricted, but I do want parents to know there's certain parents, our medication policy, we all know is if you're on some type of medicine that you have that medication on file with the nurse. Obviously, the isolation area, those kids are just coming to take their normal medicine. That will not be the same. That will not be the same. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chase. We'll move on to the next page with the COVID-19 confirmed case guidelines. This will give you a framework in case we have a confirmed case in a class, how that will be handled. We will follow Mississippi State Department of Health guidelines. The student will be quarantined according to Mississippi State Department of Health. Confirmed cases will be reported to the Mississippi State Department of Health, and then they will determine at that time if any students would need to be quarantined as a result of a confirmed case. So the Mississippi Department of Health will be the ones that will be responsible for that. When a student or staff member has a COVID case, a confirmed case, email notifications will be sent to the parents of the students in that class. And then we will ask our school nurse to go by that classroom for the next days after that case and take the temperature of those students in those classes as a proactive measure. And then deep cleaning procedures will be implemented in those classrooms also. Parental support, as Mr. Chase alluded to earlier, we're asking for parents to please check symptoms at home before school each morning. So we'll ask our parents to do a self-screening to take their child's temperature and also ask them about symptoms before they come to school. As we said earlier in the exemption policy, is we're encouraging parents to keep their child at home if they have any types of symptoms. And so that will be our first line of defense. And then also, we ask if there's any case of COVID-19 in the household, not necessarily the student, but in the household, we want that reported to school officials so that they will be aware and be able to make the adjustments that they need to make at that time. And also to help the student if the student has to be out of school to make sure they're able to get to work. And then we'll be following all guidance from Mississippi State Department of Health, and we also ask our parents to follow the guidance from the Mississippi State Department of Health and from school officials, because this will be a process as we go throughout the school year. Instruction will be given not only from us, the parents, but also parents may receive instructions directly from the Mississippi State Department of Health, which may be able to follow their guidance. And so that ends the first section on our guidelines, and at this time I will ask our Executive Director, Ms. Amanda Samples, to please come forward. Ms. Samples is leading the distance learning effort, and she will talk to you about distance learning opportunities that our students will have.
Good afternoon. So if you will refer to the page that says Virtual Instructional Program, at this time we will refer to full-time distance learning as our VIP students, the students participating in Virtual Instructional Program. So in order to give flexibility to the families of DeSoto County School students for the 2020-21 school year, we are offering students the option of participating in the DeSoto County Schools distance learning program full-time, which would be virtual instructional program. These students will be enrolled at their regular school, but they will participate in virtual learning and complete their assignments at home. Teachers will assist students in working through weekly assignments with a mix of interactive and independent activities. The content and pace will match traditional school curriculum expectations. So we will stay with the same scope and sequence as we are with our traditional program. Just a few highlights about the VIP distance learning program. We will be using district-wide a learning management system called Schoology, and that will be across for traditional everyday students and then also distance learning, and that will make the transition if we had to go to a hybrid model very seamless. That is definitely our goal. Virtual instructional program students will follow the academic calendar approved, and then so classes will start on the first day of school and then end on the last day in the spring, just as our traditional students. Attendance will be taken in accordance with the MDE guidance and guidelines. We will offer our some elective courses on the secondary level will be offered, but we will offer those core subjects through the VIP program. All DeSoto County grading policies and procedures will apply during the distance learning. And we also recognize that a unique partnership must be established between all of our educators, students, parents, and caregivers to make sure that we are paying close attention to the development of each child and ensure that appropriate grade level growth takes place even at a distance.
So this will be very important to have that partnership. Grab and go meals will be available for our VIP students, and the child nutrition department will follow a schedule similar to what we offered this spring for the grab and go meals. There will be an application process for VIP students, and after parents and caregivers read the description and considerations, they have the opportunity to click on a link and follow to apply. And there's also an email address that if they have any questions, they can contact us at distancelearning@dcsms.org. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Samples. And this program, Ms. Samples has been working diligently this summer to develop this. The reason that we want to put this in place is we know that we have several families where we have students who are at a higher risk of illness. And also we have students who have family members at home who have a high risk of illness. And we've had several parents reach out this summer, and so we know that there are going to be situations where families just are hesitant to send their child back to school. We want to make sure that we give our students the option to be able to take these classes. And also with the grab and go meals, we want to make sure that the meals are provided for the students also. At this time, and also I do want to say that the deadline, and I believe Ms. Samples may mention that too, but the deadline to apply to be enrolled for the first day of school in the program is Wednesday, July 22nd. So that will give parents 2 weeks. They'll be able to follow the link on our website in order to sign up for the program. At this time, I'll ask our district athletic director, Anthony Jenkins, to come forward. He will be giving an update to the board regarding summer activity and his committee that he has formed this summer to prepare for school.
Thank you. I guess I've been in meetings the last month. I've been in the last 15, 20 years. However, from what I've taken from those meetings is that nothing stays the same. It's changing from day to day and from week to week. But what I want to just kind of talk to you a little bit is about our extracurricular activities and fine arts. And after surveying our principals and coming up, talking with our committee of principals that I kind of headed up, we make a recommendation that athletics and fine arts will not be available to full-time distance learning students because they will be working full-time at home.
Is that maybe because they're not going to be on campuses, so they won't be on campus for the day?
And there's just so many moving parts to that for the sponsor, for the coach to try to keep up with them not being there on campus and being able to have a hand on it, so to speak. Any questions?
Thank you, Coach. All right, at this time, I'll ask our Director of Health Services, Ms. Patsy Davis, to please come forward. Ms. Davis has been busy this summer. She has been interviewing nurses. And as we've talked about, we will have a full-time on-site nurse at every elementary school, every middle school, every high school. So we appreciate your dedication to getting those nurses hired this summer so we can have that. Ms. Davis has a letter that's in your packet, and she's going to touch on that just a little bit.
You have a copy of the letter in your returns and learning plan. I'm just going to hit some of the highlights. We felt it was important for parents to know what our expectations were for them, and also for them to know what our protocols will be at school and return to school guidelines. Of course, we ask them to do a health check every morning before they send the child to school, and it lists the signs and symptoms to watch for, and ask them to please keep the child at home if they have any one of those symptoms. If a child gets ill at school, then our protocol will be we'll isolate the student, provide a face mask, and we'll, of course, contact the parents to pick them up. It also explains the importance we have to have good working phone numbers, and we'll be able to get in touch with parents. In our return to school guidelines, we went by CDC guidelines, 3 days with no fever without the use of fever-reducing medication, and symptoms are improving, and it's been at least 10 days since the symptoms first appeared. Or if they take the child to their healthcare provider, say they have strep throat and the healthcare provider says we can go back to school in 2 days, as long as we have something in writing from them, then we will certainly take that.
And am I correct, they'll have to have the date on there?
Yes, the
for the return?
return school date will have to be on the medical letter.
Now, they may, parents will choose that option if their child is not showing something, so they want them to get back to school, but they need the physician to check them out.
But if the symptoms of COVID can be so minor as the reason, yeah, we're asking to do that.
We appreciate you being proactive with that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. To ask our board members at this time, before I make a recommendation, if anyone has any questions over any of the sections.
All I can say is I hope we've covered everything adequately. We're just trying.
Every school district in America right now is trying to put the best plan together that they can. Guidance changes on a weekly basis, sometimes on a daily basis. And, I want to thank our board members for your support during this. And I also want to thank our employees for being as flexible as they have been. Here in the next few weeks, we'll be bringing in our child nutrition workers who serve the grab and go meals during the spring. They're out there every day during the springtime serving meals to our students. And I want to thank our teachers for all their hard work with distance learning in the spring and also getting prepared for this upcoming school year, because now it's going to be different from the standpoint of many of our teachers will have distance learning students, so we'll have a learning platform that they'll be using that'll be consistent throughout our district. Our principal's been working very hard this summer getting ready. I also want to thank our parents for their patience through this process. I want to thank our parents ahead of time for their patience through this process, because flexibility is going to be the word of the day this school year. At this time, Madam President, I would like to recommend to the board to approve the DeSoto County Schools Return to Learn Plan for the 2020-2021 school year.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Do I have a motion to accept the return to learn plan?
Go ahead.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's the end of our meeting.
Okay, I'd just like to make a comment to the superintendent, the staff here. It's uncharted territory, but we're going in it together. And as a board member, I have no reservation whatsoever that this district is not fully qualified to open school. Yes, will be a learning experience, but we have good teachers.
I agree.
The best.
Yes.
At this time, I need a motion to adjourn.
I make that motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We stand adjourned until July 20th at 10 a.m.